Okay, welcome to the most depressing podcast on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Starting up a little bit before the scheduled start time because the last 12-minute wait is killing me. So, kind of just want to get things going, maybe wait a couple minutes for some people to start pouring in before we get started. There we go. See, we have some people joining us here. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I'm trying to make this a little bit more regular. I don't have specific days yet, but we're getting there, slow and steady. Couple of things I wanted to talk about tonight, and some of it was brought about by woke as fuck. Yes indeed. Some of it was brought about by, as you can see on the screen, the Steam policy that we talked about last time, and also E3, but not E3 the show itself, but rather the entitlement that the entitled attitudes that it seems to bring out with people. Hello. What is it, Ledre? So, alright. I don't know. Maybe I should put out... I did put out that we're going live shortly on Twitter. If any of you guys have Twitter and you want to share the stream around and spread the word that we're live, that would be greatly appreciated. No obligation, of course. There's a little bit of Twitter stuff too, but it's more of the topic than the so-called drama. I'm gonna unmute myself on Discord here just in case we have anybody joining. Oh, I hate these incognito windows. All the advertisements are working. But anyway, but I didn't want to put out any private information. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do the still being able to view the chat and also, going through the posts here, but I guess I'll just, do the usual and click back and forth every once in a while. So up first, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation denounces new Steam policy. And that would be the Steam policy where basically Steam is just going to, let people make the games they want to make and sell them on their platform. Unless, of course, it happens to be illegal, so I imagine that refers to like copyrighted, stolen content, things of that nature. But that's not good enough. Everybody's angry about that. So many of these journalists, and now this weird organization that apparently has their nose in video games for some reason instead of solving real-world problems, because no, we've run out of problems, so now we have to come after fiction and just, clean that up a bit. They take the easy victories. They don't make effort to do things and enforce change in the real world. They have to go into the fantasy world to find their problems, because these people live in a fantasy as far as I'm concerned. So, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, NCOSE, suspiciously close to NOSE, if you know what I mean, is warning parents and socially conscious gamers away from Steam following the digital storefront's decision to publish all video games, regardless of content, as long as they're not illegal or straight-up trolling. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation denounces this decision. Disavow, that's right. In light of the rise of sexual violence and exploitation games being hosted on Steam, it said in a statement on its website Thursday. Why do we care? Why would anyone care what these people have to say about video games? I mean, we're going to continue on here, but it's going to become abundantly clear that these are the people that sit back and complain about the medium, but don't actually have any real vested interest in it. This isn't their hobby. It's clearly not something that they spend their time doing, but they want to police it anyway. Last month, Valve told certain developers their games would be pulled from Steam if they didn't remove so-called pornographic content. The affected games included dating sim Honey Pop, color-matching puzzler Tropical Liquor, and pirate-themed visual novel Mutiny. All three feature anime-style graphics and are overtly sexual in nature. Oh no, slap on the wrist there. Developers said they were being targeted unfairly, which in a sense they were, because games like Grand Theft Auto 5, where, you know, you can go to a strip club, were not affected. I believe The Witcher 3 has some scenes of that nature, also not affected. So it seemed like they were targeting the smaller, you know, visual novel type, puzzle / hentai type games, which aren't even full blown, you know, in nature. There's just some nudity from what I understand. From Honey Pop to Sono Hanabira to Mutiny, the message is clear. If your game has sexy anime-inspired art in it, get it gone. While Western games, which are 100 times more pornographic content, escape unscathed. Yep, that, I guess that would be, you know, kind of what I was referring to, where Grand Theft Auto 5 was unaffected, as well as, you know, things like Witcher. One rule for them, no rules for us, said Mutiny developer Loopysoft. We are not sleazebags making horrific pornography. We're, oh boy, a strongly queer visual novel studio that makes sexy games. Now look, I think that the whole, oh, we're a queer studio thing is stupid, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve to have their games sold. You know, if people want to buy that crap, buy it up. It's your money. Why not? Skip ahead a little bit because none of that. It's just a statement, basically. Valve reversed its stance. Okay. Okay, so the organization calls that decision cowardly, because there's nothing as brave as calling out video games for sexual exploitation. In our current #MeToo culture, you know it's serious when they start referencing hashtag movements. Steam made a cowardly choice to shirk its corporate and social responsibility. Why do they have any kind of social responsibility? They're a video game platform. Their business is selling video games. Why do they have to police society? It doesn't really make much sense. To remove sexually violent and exploitive video games from its platform, said Don Hawkins, which, again, that's not really what they did. Apologize if you can hear a dog barking. Not much I could do about that. Hopefully it won't be a regular thing. But I'm getting sidetracked. So, like I said, this isn't even an across-the-board rule that was put into effect. It was just affecting certain games and not all of the ones that, you know, have these kind of scenes in them. So it wasn't even a good rule to start with. And it was good that they went back on that, because it wasn't fair. It was just kind of being selective about it. There are currently over 1,000 games on Steam with nudity or sexual content, all of which are sexually objectifying, and a disturbing number of which are designed so the player rapes, sexually coerces, and commercially exploits women. I didn't realize Hooker Simulator or Pimp Simulator was a thing. You know, it very well could be, so I might want to be quiet. Oh, this is good, because they're going to name drop some games, and maybe I'll open these up, because I don't even know what some of these are. Hopefully, oh, it's going to give me the age check. House Party? I don't know what this is. I know it's a bad movie, but I've never seen the game. Hopefully we can go to it. I'm just like putting my birthday out there, I guess. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, hopefully we can go to it without too much. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything going on here. You know, it looks like you have choices. House Party, in its concept and sense of humor, is inspired by the adventure-style games of the 80s and 90s, like Leisure Suit Larry, there was a tongue twister, and Monkey Island, but it is rendered in a beautiful 3D first-person context. Don't you mean perspective? Whatever. So yeah, there's, you know, it just looks like one of those kind of point and click. I don't know if you can walk around in first person or what. It's an early access game, which I really can't stand. I don't like that trend of... This is a little bit off topic, but I don't like that trend of selling unfinished products, especially when the early access really doesn't promise necessarily that, you know, it'll keep developing for it. So they could kind of just run off with your money. I mean, they do warn you, but it's really not a good thing in my opinion most of the time. Melty's Quest, which this is amazing that they referenced this one. Apparently I can view the page still. So I'm not going to show the trailer because I don't know what they show in there. But basically, it's an RPG Maker game with these, you know, anime graphics, portraits. But all of the graphics of the gameplay are just RPG Maker. So it's kind of amazing to me that they go and point this one out. It doesn't seem like it would be ridiculously popular. I don't know how many we can scroll through here. It should be all right. I don't think there's any actual nudity on the screen, so we won't get banned. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's an RPG Maker game. Granted, they are charging $19.99 for it, which I do think is a little bit ridiculous, because I don't see that much of a change to the UI or the system. I mean, maybe they made custom graphics in the style of RPG Maker. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it's a $20 game. Apparently people have paid it, and it has pretty good reviews, 404 reviews. I don't know if that's the amount. You know, maybe there are more players than that. But it's interesting to me that they went and referenced this game, because it seems like a small game that not many people would actually know about. So using it as an example is kind of ridiculous. Let's see. For example, Melty's Quest allegedly awards points for engaging in various sex acts. Players earn orgasm, cream pie gangbang, blowjob, swallow, bukkake, and prostitution points, and can increase a slut level rating. So it's kind of like a slut walk in video game form. Why isn't that okay? It's okay in real life, but it's not okay in video games. Let's see. Hawkins said thousands have asked Steam to remove these games via their campaigns. Now it appears that the company is capitulating to the loud complaints of the few gamers who cannot enjoy video games sans sexploitation. So that's an interesting statement, right? We're saying it's the loud complaints of just a few gamers, but then framing this as a huge problem within the industry. Do you really think that the gaming industry that is out to make profit would cater to a small group of people that isn't paying that? You know what? Now that I ask that, they kind of are in a way. In certain certain developers are getting a little bit more social justice-y, but I think they're seeing, you know, blowback for that. I think they're seeing that gamers, as cringy as a term as that has become, aren't really into the idea of that. That's not what sells games. You know, it's gameplay, story, and not really concerning itself with the diversity narrative. National Center on Sexual Exploitation calls on parents and socially conscious gamers to refrain from using Steam until the company reverses this misguided and harmful policy. Good luck. Good luck to you, lady. Nobody's going to do that. I'm going to check back with the chat because we're getting through here a little bit. I got to switch to live chat. Welcome everybody who has showed up since I last looked at the chat. Seems like there's quite a few of you here now. Let me just scroll up a little bit here. Window capture the browser using and have the browser beside it. Yeah, I could do that, but then I can't necessarily view it. Yeah, I'll figure something out. Damn it, we need more problems. Let's see. Truth be told, I've only played games when Nintendo was still new. Easy low-hanging fruit. Let's see. We're queer, we're above the rules. There we go. That's how it works. Seen this game played. It's fucking dumb. Are we talking about the Melty's Quest one? Seriously, can't be said enough. What is this? A post E3 stream or video game prawn stream? It's neither. We're just kind of going through this stupid article and talking about why it's ridiculous. Shit looks like it should be free. Hey, Hans. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it looks good enough to pay for, or at least not $20. That just seems absurd to me. Seems pretty low effort. I dislike degenerate content as much as the next guy, but censoring and trying to censor shit like this always bites you in the ass. Yeah, you know, it's not my thing either. You wouldn't see me paying for it because it's not my point of interest, but it's hard to, you know, if it's not something that's illegal, it's very hard to justify censoring that and then saying, no, I don't believe in censorship when it comes to something that you like. It, you know, it always comes after something you like, so you kind of do have to defend it at the lowest point in order to justify why you shouldn't be censored. Sub Scratch Point, good on you for covering Ralph when that shit happened. Hey, no problem. You're taking a nice slot for most audiences, like your stream. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's get... E3 was just lesbian protagonists. Oh, I did see that. Did you see that Kotaku actually made a whole article about that? About the kiss in the Last of Us 2 trailer? That was absolutely ridiculous. But it figures. Maybe I'll pull it up because I did screenshot it at some point. Oh boy. You're 14 words me? Okay. We must secure the existence of our people in a future for white children. That is going to be clipped at some point and used against me, but that's, you know, perfectly okay. Thanks for streaming. You're welcome. Apologies for the dog barking there in the background. They don't want to stay calm when I'm streaming. It's very exciting, you know, they're all pumped up. Steam is arguably the biggest distributor of digital PC games and publishes thousands of titles from AAA and indie developers each year. Games like House Party and Melty's Quest, yep, just tiny droplets of water in Valve's vast ocean. Thanks to the company's new hands-off attitude, more of these allegedly exploitive games could soon find their way onto the platform. Oh no. Leif Corcoran, founder of the online indie games marketplace itch.io, called the new Valve's policy ridiculous. Oh, so what I thought was amazing about this, the itch.io, I know I've been on that website before, and I knew I saw some weird games that they had hosted, and somebody went, I don't have it anymore, but somebody on Twitter went and screenshotted a game that was basically something about Mario and pissing, and it's hosted on itch.io, and this guy is here talking about how he's so morally superior to Valve. It's absurd, the mentality these guys have. You know, they defend the absolute most vile garbage, and then they want to act like they're better than everybody else. I mean, what is it? They turn Mario into R. Kelly, and that's art? That's a video game? Might have to grab a drink of water here in a sec. Formerly known as morality in media. Oh, no wonder it's so cancerous. NCOSE was founded in 1962. Wow, they've been around for a while. And advocates for a world free from all forms of sexual exploitation. Which I guess is why they're going after video games now. It's an easy target. You know, video games have been targeted over the years for a variety of things like this. Digital distributor is on its Dirty Dozen list of so-called porn facilitators. Imagine going on Steam with the plethora of content available and only focusing on the games that feature the so-called problematic content. I mean, that's just a small portion of what is actually for sale on Steam. And really, by doing this, you're just kind of ignoring the issue, which would be not content, but not content of the game in the ideological sense, but quality control and, you know, making sure that games aren't being released broken rather than worrying about if there's something that you don't like in it in the story or characters presented a certain way. That's just stupid, because if that's your complaint, you can always play a different game that caters to your wants. There's so many out there that you could just pick something else. I'm not saying you can't criticize. Of course you can criticize as you like, but when it gets to the point of saying, I don't like it, therefore it must not exist for anyone, that's when you're crossing the line. Let's go back here. Anyone here use Reddit? I try not to use Reddit. that'd be why I missed it. I just do YouTube image board. I have Twitter. Okay, you guys are talking about your own stuff there. We're dealing with degenerates on a power grab. They will be unemployable once this succession of pantomimes is finally over. They have no idea what's on the pipeline for them. Do I follow you already on Twitter? Are you talking to me or somebody else? Even Medicare commentary wasn't enough to get me to watch that degeneracy. Yeah, I had the stream on in, well, one of the streams on in the background, but I wasn't really interested in it. Nothing that I heard about that's coming out really grabbed me. That's not to say it's all garbage, but I'm a little bit picky when it comes to video games. Personally planning using an unedited version to meme Armored Skeptic. I'm a little bit curious as to what you have in mind there. So that's sort of pretty much it for this stupid organization, but that's kind of a segue into the larger topic here, which was E3 and the sense of entitlement that I've seen people display. And I pulled up some tweets that kind of showcase this that I saw going around. I mean, I did post responses to it on Twitter, but I do want to cover it here in a more, what's the word I'm looking for, a deeper way, rather than just, kind of mocking it. So it says, "Dear game industry, some of us actually don't like having to play with random strangers over the internet." Now, I can get behind that. I don't really like to do much online gaming. But here's the part that's ridiculous. Love all of us who aren't amped up white cis het dudes who like to do owns. Implying that only the evil straight white men play online games. Even though they always argue that gaming is so diverse and all of these different types of gamers play online, and so that's why we kind of have to buckle down on the harassment and the bigotry and the slurs. So you kind of have to pick one. I mean, which is it? Is it just a bunch of white dudes playing online? Or is it a bunch of different people that just happen to like games? But the thing that I do find weird about this is that I'm not personally seeing a shortage of single-player options. So if you don't like an online game, just play a single-player game. I know there's been a couple of instances where they kind of make you have to still be connected to the internet to play single player, and I personally think, that's bullshit, and that's kind of an unnecessary feature that has to go. But there's not a shortage of single player games, and the only reason that the online multiplayer persists is because clearly people are buying it. So the only way to get the quote-unquote industry to take notice would be to stop playing the multiplayer games. And, then you would see a shift, because they're going to go where the profit goes. That's what businesses do. It seems pretty obvious to me, but, these people just want to get on their high horse and start complaining about it and start blaming it on white dudes for some... that's just the go-to. They'll link anything to it, They'll trip over a crack in the sidewalk and, blame the white man for it. That was one of them. Let me see if okay, I did get the other one here. So the other one may be somebody that you guys know, but before we get to that, I will go back here and just take a look. Good, I'm glad I found your channel. Most of the usual people are here. That's a good sign. Oh, you recognize a lot of these people? I mean, I recognize you guys from the last couple of streams, but you're still a little bit new to me. Someone is using Discord. Yes, I am. Actually, if you would like to come on, you're free to do that. Gotta have connects to even get in. Wonder what his connects think of his audience. Same, I just play single player. Don't buy online games. Yeah, only online games. I don't either. Actually, I was a little bit annoyed when I purchased Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 for PS4. I really liked the first one. That's what I bought on Steam. And, they kind of tried to force online mode on you. Is it Total Biscuit? Unfortunately, Rip, he cannot be with us. These newbies. Hello, fellow whites. Is that what's going on here? I didn't realize that was the kind of chat I was running. All right, so anyway, this is someone you may recognize. Good old Radical Bites, or Jonathan McIntosh. I don't know how he says his name. But anyway, he's always there with a ridiculous hot take for you that doesn't represent reality by any means, just the warped reality in his sick, demented mind. And if you read his feed, it really just makes you want to commit suicide. Just off yourself now, because, you know, the stress. Our world desperately needs stories that promote empathy and solidarity. You know, kind of like the empathy and solidarity good old Jonathan here fosters on Twitter when he blocks everybody that disagrees with him. Whenever we engage with a piece of media, we need to ask, do the messages in this work reaffirm our shared humanity, or do they reinforce regressive ideas about the inevitability of violence and exploitation? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't remember when it became a rule that in order to engage with a piece of media, which, by the way, is such a fucking pretentious way of saying play a video game, I didn't realize that we need to make sure that it sends a specific message about humanity. Why? It's fiction. Some stories are meant to tell, you know, a deeper story, a deeper narrative, if you will. You know, characters will have a lot of depth to them. They'll be well thought out. The themes will, you know, discuss the human condition or present the human condition. Let me take a sip of water real quick, though, because I am going a little bit dry here. But it's amazing to me that somebody can actually get on here and think like this and think it's a good idea to post it. But he really believes that he's on the right side of history, that this is something that stories must do. It's a must. There's no room for both mindless entertainment and stories that have depth. We can't have both. You have to pick one. Why? I don't know. Jonathan says so. It must be true, right? The thing is that for all the diversity narratives that these people posture about, the truth is they just want conformity. They just want a uniform narrative that spouts their worldview back at them constantly. And if they don't see it, they grab the pitchforks. Now, I don't know about you, but there's a variety of, you know, superhero stories and RPGs, movies, plenty of things that promote an idea of empathy, you know, people coming together to fight for a good cause. So many stories that do that. Does this guy live in, I don't know, like some kind of world where every game is just Grand Theft Auto? I mean, even games like that can have some sort of moral lesson in them just because you're not playing as a, you know, a hero that is all that is good and just, which, by the way, they also complain about. It doesn't mean that you can't teach lessons or that you can't get something out of the story. So I find claims like these or calls for these type of things absurd. I mean, who are you to tell other people the kind of message that they have to spread or the kind of message that they should be looking for when they interpret a story? How do you know that that's what they're looking to get out of their media? Maybe, just maybe, they're sick of the real world. They're sick of the political posturing and everything needing to spread a specific narrative, and they just want some entertainment at the end of the day to forget about their boss crapping on them at their shitty job, or maybe people like you telling them they're horrible people just for enjoying something that is really just a hobby that doesn't necessarily do anything horrible to the world. I mean, video games can be harmful in the sense that just like any other hobby, if you indulge in it too much, it can have negative effects on your health. Sure, but I think that those cases are few and far enough between, just by extension of the number of people that play video games out there, that we know that it's not the cause of video games, but rather it's people and their real world issues and the way that they cope with them, or rather the way that they don't cope with them. All right, let's see what's going on here. Just checking. Just checking. Oh, Riskman, did you... excuse me, did you want to be pulled in? I joined, but I'm not part... Oh, okay. Well, I will pull you in then. I see it just now. As soon as I can... There we go. I think I got you. So whenever you're ready, you may unmute.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Just ate a little dinner. Got back from work. Before I tried to join the room, I noticed the chat was getting a little airy in there for just a half second. Just a half second. I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to take a look here and catch up.
I was referring to the hello, fellow whites comment.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. I think I know why that came up. It was because somebody had me read the 14 words. Yeah, but they did thank me for streaming, so I figured it was the least I could do. All right, so yeah, I mean, you've been overhearing the Jonathan McIntosh wonder here. Do you feel like...
Regrettably, I missed part of it while I was trying to figure this out.
Okay, did you at least hear the tweet itself?
I did not.
Okay, so it says, our world desperately needs stories that promote empathy and solidarity. Whenever we engage with a piece of media, we need to ask, do the messages in this work reaffirm our shared humanity? Or do they reinforce regressive ideas about the inevitability, of violence and exploitation? So, yeah, go ahead. You can give me your take on that. I think I went off on this enough.
My whole thing is, I'm going to take a quote right out of Labyrinth here from good old David Bowie.
Sure.
Fair. You keep using that word. I wonder what your basis for comparison is. If this particular person is trying to say that video games need to be a certain way where they don't reflect realism, I mean, for me, a good story has tragedy. It has heartbreak. I mean, I hate to keep going back to Final Fantasy VI. Well, I don't, but I do anyway.
But do go for it.
When I first saw Celeste throw herself off the cliff, spoiler warning for those who haven't played a 20-some-odd-year-old.
Of course.
That was a heartbreaking moment for me. I mean, it was censored, of course, so she wasn't committing suicide.
No, she was just perking herself up, yeah.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a powerful moment.
Yeah, I mean, you need conflict. Look, even if you're just having some more toned down, less dramatic, so-called slice of life story, even those stories contain conflict. I don't care if you are, you know, oh, I broke my shoelaces. Well, now you need to get some new shoelaces. Sure, it's a lame quest, but it's conflict with resolution at the end. You know, it's just how you tell a narrative, and you can't have these messages if everything is just sort of hunky-dory all the time. You have to have issues. You have to touch on the tough subjects.
I hate you off, but I'm getting reports that we're echoing.
Oh, okay. Let me... You know, I'm not sure how to fix that. Let me turn down my volume over here. That may help. Hopefully. I will also try to move the mic a little bit away from the speakers.
I wonder, can the folks in chat let me know who's echoing? Is it on my end, his end? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just gonna continue until we get an answer. But the thing is like, I don't feel like there's a shortage of these kind of stories. He seems to be implying that we have a shortage, but I think what really his issue is that he's not seeing enough stories that align with his personal ideology. You know, just because he's sitting here saying that these things don't exist and that we desperately need more of them, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. I mean, like you said, you know, you pulled up a game that's 20 something years old, and even that has plenty of these types of messages within it. So
They're saying it's on my end, so I'm going to try minimizing some of the audio coming out of my headset. I don't know how it's getting through my...
yeah, I'm not really sure.
How about that? Is that a little better?
I mean, I don't hear it, so they would have to be our judge, unfortunately.
Dude, e-whoring fair user, I have headphones on. They're very expensive headphones.
I don't,
actually,
because my headphones are broken. However, this has never been a problem for me because my speakers are nowhere near the microphone. I've been streaming every stream just this way and haven't had that problem. So, don't know.
And regrettably, I'm not really broadcasting any way that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me check user volume or something on Discord. It's Scratchpoint's fault. Everything's my fault.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. If you don't have a story with something that is tragic in it, how are you supposed to overcome that tragedy?
Yeah, and like I said, he may not even be saying that, but I do think that he's kind of saying that there's not enough stories that spread his particular worldview, which, you know, I'm not entirely sure what that even is anymore, because he just kind of sits on Twitter and calls every game that has violence in it toxic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how we're reinforcing regressive ideas about the inevitability of violence and exploitation when at the end of most games, the heroes win. I mean, isn't that the whole point?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I thought, but it's hard to tell with this guy specifically. And, you know, I think it's, if you're not finding something that you're liking within the vast library of video games, at some point you kind of have to be like, maybe video games aren't for me, because there's so many different stories out there. I'm confused, befuddled even, how you might miss, you know, the themes that are spread within video games and movies and comic books, all these things that feature heroes and kind of saving the world. Yeah, sure, there's ones that take a darker turn and don't have happy endings, but I think that there's room for those too.
Yeah. Uh-oh, we're starting a little political in chat now. I'm going to stay away from that little conversation right now.
Let's see. Could it be OBS? Yeah, I mean, if it is, I'm not 100% sure what part of OBS it would be. Says the echo is greatly reduced now, so hopefully that fixed it. What about walking simulators? Yeah, I mean, that would be something that could appeal to him.
I thought those were called treadmills.
You know, that would be, I guess that would be the real life version, which would probably be a good idea.
You know, put a treadmill on, put on like a VR headset, start walking. You know, all the perks of walking outside without the actual UV light to burn my pale flesh.
There you go. All right, there was, let's see, was there another one? I'm trying to figure out what
I don't know who the Sweet Life of Dio Brando is, but they have just run all of my internets. He says in terms of politics, well, he or she, frick, I don't know. In terms of politics, Kefka 2020.
There we go. Vote now.
Why pick the lesser of two evils when you can pick the greater of them?
Yes, the ultimate evil even. All right, so next, well, this one was sort of personal. Well, not really personal, but personal in the sense that it involved my interaction. And I don't want to get too deeply into the argument itself, but rather just when you get into one of those conversations where somebody just constantly ignores your point and then kind of plays a high ground. So I made a tweet the other day. Let me find it because apparently, you know, right before I started up this stream, I had all my tabs open on incognito and Chrome froze and I lost all of them. So I had to go back and dig them all up, and apparently I had missed one, but we should get there quickly enough, I think. Did I miss it? No. Okay. So I made this post the other day. I had remembered that in California, they changed the law of spreading HIV from a felony to just a misdemeanor. And I had saw a news article where it said, the headline was, "Man reportedly admits he intentionally contracted HIV to infect others." And I believe this was, I don't remember what state. It was something with an A. Alabama, Arkansas, one of those. And so I just made a post, and I added the senator of California, or one of them, and I just screenshotted that, and I said, hey, here's why this shouldn't just be a misdemeanor, meaning people do these crazy things, and by changing the law, you're kind of inadvertently protecting them, or at least making their punishment less when they're doing a horrible, life-changing thing to somebody else, purposely. You know, no accident. This is knowingly.
I find this interesting that his last name is Wiener.
I do, too. It's kind of one of those too perfect.
Given the topic of choice right now.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those too perfect situations. So there was a lot of controversy surrounding this law when it was first came to light and first passed, obviously, given the subject matter. Their claim was that it was supposed to encourage people to come forward and get tested. And when it comes to the part about knowingly infecting others, I see a bit of a contradiction with that reasoning. So if you are somebody that has HIV and you are knowingly infecting others, the qualifying term here that my little friend on Twitter wanted to ignore, that means that you have been tested and you know that you have the virus. That's the only way that you can knowingly spread it to somebody else. So why would somebody who already knows need to be tested? That was my point. That point went ignored. The guy went on for 2 days trying to call me out for this post, saying how I don't understand the law. And I'm like, no, I understand the law. I just disagree with it because it's a fundamental contradiction. There should be some sort of amendment here, if their goal is to encourage testing, that has a qualifier for people that knowingly do it, because those are people that have already been tested. If you know that you have it, you had to be tested. Unless you're like Tumblr diagnosed or something. I don't understand how you could do it knowingly if you didn't know you had the virus already.
Well, I mean, in one perspective, and this is not my perspective, one could argue that having any sort of unsafe sex, you know, without a condom and all that other safe stuff is basically like firing a blank gun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dangerous game, but the thing is, a situation like this, and I see people, you know, I've seen people saying, and even the guy that was arguing with me saying, oh, well, other STDs aren't a felony, why should this be any different? And to me...
Because this one is a severe life-changing
Right,
thing.
you have to be insane to not see the difference between, I don't know, gonorrhea, which I still believe is treatable by, you know, medication, or curable, I should say, and HIV, which is something you would have to take medication for the rest of your life, which healthcare costs would, you know, be through the roof for you. And not only that, it still has the potential to kill you. even if you're on medication, it's not guaranteed to work for you. Yes, it's gotten better, but I don't think that justifies somebody getting away with basically a attempted murder.
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement. I'm just saying that I could see how someone could argue that, well, the other person that was consenting didn't wear proper protection, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. It's like, really? That's going to be your defense?
No, I could see some people possibly making that defense too. And while I do believe that, people should be, both parties should be as responsible as possible, at the end of the day, that's still somebody coming into the situation not being completely honest about their status. So the other person can't know.
My question then to the people that would defend this new thing, this misdemeanor instead of felony. So if I had a syringe that had HIV infected blood in it, and I ran up to some joker in the street, jabbed him with it, and injected it, would that be a felony or would that be a misdemeanor?
That's kind of an interesting situation, and I do have to wonder how the law would cover that, because it doesn't sound like it really differentiates. It just kind of says even those who knowingly do it. I mean, there's many ways you can expose someone, as you just demonstrated.
Well, here, I like this this comment by Buddy Killer. Quote unquote, by Buddy Killer, knowingly spreading any disease should be tantamount to biological terrorism, in my opinion.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean,
it's one thing if it's like a common cold. I mean, you don't want to spread that, of course.
Yeah,
but, I mean, if somebody catches
sometimes you can't help it. But it's, when it comes to these things that are intimate and you know what you're doing, can't you just have the slightest bit of common decency and care for someone else? Especially, I guess this is kind of a consequence of devaluing intimacy. But you would think that, somebody that you are in that type of relationship with, you would care for their well-being. Call me crazy.
Regrettably, insane is the new sane in this world, it seems like.
Yeah, and so, I didn't really want to get too much into the argument aspect of this, because I thought it was a little bit silly. No, not you. Just this Twitter guy. Basically, it boiled down to it saying, "Oh well, I'm just gonna not pay attention to the fact that you said knowingly and pretend that doesn't change the argument at all." But it kind of did, because it would contradict his point that it's to encourage people for getting tested, when, I will repeat one last time, if you knowingly infect somebody, you must already know you have it. So therefore, being tested again, it doesn't make any sense. You already know you're positive. I will check back on chat here. Ruins the person's life forever. Agreed. Yes, Zidane. That is my point. Even if you want to say it's manageable now, I can't understand anybody defending it on those grounds, simply because even if it is manageable, I don't want it. I don't think anybody that is defending this would sign themselves up for this disease, and rightfully so. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to treat anybody that, is positive as a lesser being necessarily, but if they're going to not care about the well-being of anybody else, then they deserve to be punished to the fullest extent of the law, and not just a slap on the wrist for ruining another person's life.
Well, my whole thing is, if the reason I support the death penalty in certain circumstances, and these are very important circumstances I'm going to bring up in a second, if you show so little value for other people's lives that you're willing to do blank just to take somebody out, then I don't see any reason why I should respect your life at all. Like, this is why I can, this is how I debate when it comes to the death penalty. respect is given and earned, just like, you know, I kind of lost my point there, but basically, what I'm trying to say is,
Yeah, basically, if you don't care about the lives of other people, then you're not really entitled for anyone else to value yours.
yes, thank you. You have a much
You know,
better
it's
gift for
kind
word
of
than
a mutual agreement. It's sort of a socially binding contract. You know, I do no harm to you, you do no harm to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we expect the law to do for us. It's to protect us. We trust that they're going to follow the law. We're going to follow the law. We're both going to care about each other enough to where we don't intentionally hurt each other, and everyone gets along fine.
Utopia, if only. um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
not in
that
this
was sort
world.
of that situation. You know, this has kind of been talked about to death, and I think I've made not necessarily in this stream, but just in general. But I think I've made my point clear on this, and that, you know, I don't want to punish people that are careful, but I do think that people that are reckless and want to endanger others definitely don't deserve the same courtesy. Um, so that being said, I feel a little funny segueing into this topic, but Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey forced to apologize for eating Chick-fil-A during Pride Month. I swear I didn't line these two topics up in succession on purpose.
Um, is that an actual thing?
Oh, it is. Do you recall why that might be an actual thing?
Well, I know Chick-fil-A did something that was supposedly
Yeah, I mean
anti-LGBT or something like that. I don't know.
they're not necessarily overtly supportive, so that obviously means they hate everybody and, you know, have to be punished. But
Yeah.
I just don't think that, look, as long as a company isn't mistreating people intentionally, or at least on the individual level, you know, maybe they disagree with some ideas, but as long as they're not necessarily putting that into their policy and mistreating customers. Although, even if a company did do that, I don't understand why you would care and want to support them anyway. You just go somewhere where you are welcome.
Well, if I might cut you off for right there, if you disagree with anything in the company strongly enough, just don't go. Don't freaking go. It's that simple.
Oh yeah, I agree, but you know, it gets kind of crazy to me just because, I mean, if you think about it critically, a company itself is not even though we treat it like one, it's not necessarily a singular entity. It's made up of a variety of different people, all carrying out different jobs. There is no way that you are going to agree politically with each and every individual that works at this company. So it kind of gets to a point where, you know, obviously you might think that some offenses are worse than others, and therefore worth going after. But I really feel like at the end of the day, all of this boycott stuff really just doesn't amount to much more than showing off. And really what you need to do is, you know, just think of companies as providing a service and not necessarily there to spit your politics back at you. As long as they're not getting political in your face, there's really no need for the topic to even come up. And I find it odd that we kind of expect companies to speak out on things that aren't even necessarily related to the business that the product that they provide. I think we've kind of gone a little bit off the rails with that, and to the point of just kind of missing the point of what a corporation is.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, this whole boycotting thing is just getting out of hand. It seems like for any little thing, you can be bullied as a company by consumers into doing all this crazy stuff. Like Starbucks shut down for like a day or two, I guess.
Yeah,
like all of them.
They underwent some sort of crazy diversity training or something.
Because one person in their organization
did something questionably racist. With,
Well,
you know,
from
it's
what I
like we.
understand, he wrote Mexican or something like that for the name, which, yeah,
Oh,
that's
is that what happened?
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it
pretty
was in
questionable.
regards to the. I thought it was in regards to when they made the big deal about the two black individuals being asked to leave or something like that.
Oh, if that's something else, I might have misheard or
Yeah, I mean,
got my
you might be
stories
right.
crossed.
That one sounds like it could be a little bit worse. I mean, I guess. Look, that's a stupid. That's a stupid. I guess it's a stupid move in the social climate, especially if you're going to if you're working at Starbucks, because you know the kind of people that usually support Starbucks. They're very socially conscious, and I'm making a generalization. I know that doesn't apply to everybody, but as you can see from the complaints that are made, a lot of the people that go there support the kind of politics that we're seeing demonstrated here. So you wouldn't want to, if you care about your job, I guess, you wouldn't want to label somebody in that way. Maybe he's an idiot and just thought, oh, I'm just saying, okay, this is that Mexican individual, which in and of itself isn't really offensive. I mean, unless you consider what you are offensive. I don't know. But yeah,
Someone says you might be right. Misty Spiller says no, they kicked out loiterers. So maybe I misunderstood or misheard the story.
yeah, no, you're they're right. They were talking about the thing that I was saying. Yeah, they claimed that the guys were loitering, so that's why they asked them to leave. Then they didn't want to leave, and then the police got involved, and it just became a whole thing that it kind of got blown out of proportion. So
don't all these things get blown out of proportion?
They do, especially when we're talking about where the Twitter CEO is eating. So let's just take a look at what happened here. Twitter and Square.
I can read the headlines now. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's okay. Headlines. Guy eats some freaking lunch.
Yeah, terrible. Twitter and Square. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Twitter and Square CEO Jack Dorsey ignited a backlash online after revealing that he ate at Chick-fil-A this month. On Saturday, Dorsey posted a photo on Twitter with the caption "Boost at Chick-fil-A," showing he had saved 10% on a $31.58 order at the fast food chain. A boost is a cashback reward Square users can earn when using a cash card, which is a debit card from the payment platform. I think it's a little bit silly that people are kind of sharing their purchases online, but at the same time, this is ridiculous. Critics immediately, I'm having a rough day. Let's just say that. Immediately seized on Dorsey's support of Chick-fil-A, whose CEO has come under fire for his views on same-sex marriage in the past during Pride Month. Yeah, I think basically they were just like, they don't necessarily support it. But you know what? I mean, look, if you think, whether you think that's right or wrong, that doesn't matter. But the thing is, you can't strong arm somebody into believing what you believe. In fact, most of the time that just makes them double down on their own belief, especially if you come at them on the offensive. It puts them in a defensive position automatically, and they are less likely to come around to whatever idea it is that you're trying to present.
Well, that just goes back to the whole "do you attract more flies with sugar" thing. I mean, I try when I get into debates to be as respectful as possible, and that just, I don't know.
I'm going to admit straight off the bat that sometimes I'm a complete asshole, but usually that's because somebody is antagonistic when they approach me. I'm more of a, this kind of went back to what we were saying about respect somebody's life and they'll respect yours. This is more of a get what you give mindset where, I'm less likely to give somebody respect if they're not going to approach me that way.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm saying if somebody starts being disrespectful, I pretty much end the conversation right there and move on with my life because it's not worth my time.
That's probably
or
a
stress.
Good attitude. So this is, why is Twitter boosting a notoriously anti-gay company during hashtag Pride Month? Another person wrote. Among the critics was former CNN anchor, Soledad O'Brien, who said, "This is an interesting company to boost during Pride Month, Jack." Dorsey responded, "You're right. Completely forgot about their background. I was just trying to enjoy some chicken." He didn't say that, but he should have said that.
That would have been amazing if you'd have said that.
Yeah. Some people supported Dorsey's decision to eat at Chick-fil-A, saying that it's a great that it's great, and that he shouldn't have to apologize for eating a chicken sandwich. I, completely agree. That's a little bit absurd. One person tweeted, "Don't give in to these people and their complaints. I'm gay and I love Chick-fil-A. Ridiculous. Go on and eat that Chick-fil-A and post as much as you want about it." See, this is... So, I don't like it when people bring identity into the mix, but the reason that
that person could be a spokesman. I'm gay and I like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, the reason the reason that this happens, though, is because you have the people that will say, this is what's right for the community. That's why this is not right for you to do on Pride Month. So that's why you have somebody that comes forward and say, hey, I'm this and I don't care. I don't like it, but I see why it happens. And it kind of just goes to demonstrate that you can't just assume that just because somebody has a certain sexual orientation, they hold a certain opinion.
Or like how certain people think that all African Americans are Democrats.
Right. Well, we have some very woke individuals to reveal the truth about that, so that's all right. I'd spread a little bit of that dragon energy. Okay, the backlash shows Chick-fil-A still has lingering problems with its brand image. Does it really, though? I kind of wonder how much profit they pull in. Following remarks 6 years ago by the company's CEO, Dan Cathy, regarding his views on same-sex marriage, Cathy set off a fury among gay rights supporters in 2012 that led to nationwide protests after he told Baptist Press that the company was guilty as charged for backing the biblical definition of the family unit. Oh, well. So... I mean, look, yeah, I know why people are cringing and, going out of their minds, but that's just saying that's what he supports. That doesn't mean you have to do it. You still have, the right to get married. I mean, that's not being taken away because one guy's chicken sandwich company doesn't care. And of course, that's, this is where it comes into, oh, this one guy represents the entire company. I'm sure there's people that probably work for these chains that support it. They don't necessarily have to agree with everything the CEO says.
And I bet not everyone on Twitter is, all about the LGBT rights either,
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't focus on, like you were saying, a whole organization based upon the actions of a few people.
So let's see. Reports soon emerged detailing Chick-fil-A's many charitable donations to anti-LGBTQ organizations. I don't necessarily know what those are. The link just says something about giving to anti-gay groups. I don't know what constitutes an anti-gay group. I guess we could click, but then it would kind of go off into a tangent somewhere else. And this is already kind of a well-established thing, so I don't necessarily think we have to go back into that. For months afterward... go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you that we probably don't need to go into that.
Okay. For months afterward, protesters rallied outside Chick-fil-A restaurants across the country and held... I remember. This I thought was kind of ridiculous. They held kiss-ins where same-sex couples kissed in front of onlookers and TV cameras covering the backlash. That's a little bit kind of, ridiculous. I mean, some people don't even like to see straight people do the whole public display of affection thing. And I mean, there's, I don't necessarily care, but there's kind of a limit as to what you should be doing in front of other people when it comes to intimacy, just out of decency to other people. There's some things you should do in private. I'm not necessarily saying that a kiss is always one of them, but if your whole purpose is to go stand in front of a store and do that to sort of say, gotcha, that's a little bit ridiculous. I understand their point, but at the same time, I really just think that it's kind of one of those situations where they are literally shoving it down other people's throats. This used to be, the argument used to be what happens in our bedroom is none of your business. And I think most people can get behind that. But this is sort of where it steps into territory of not only do you have to be okay what goes on in our bedroom, but you have to be okay with me all the time, no matter what I'm doing all the time. And I don't necessarily agree with that. You have to kind of operate within society to an extent.
Well, you know, it's very interesting that we're having a conversation about this topic literally today, or sorry, yeah, literally today. I had a talk with my manager last night, and he and I had a very good discussion about how tolerance does not equal acceptance, nor should it. I mean, you can tolerate someone till the cows come home. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them in the slightest.
Right, and I kind of feel like that's what's going on here. I mean, look, if the company was like, oh, we don't want any gay people to come here, while I would get why people would be angry, you know, I would just recommend, hey, just go somewhere else and show them you don't need them. But that's not what they're doing. They're basically equating tolerance. You know, he just expressed his opinion while the people that are against him have theirs. And that's not enough. You know, he's saying, I just support the biblical definition of the family unit. He's not saying you have to. Let's see.
That's what I've never understood why people think they have to get everyone to agree with them in order to you know, hang out or get along peacefully.
I think it's this mindset of sort of defeating bigotry in all of its forms. But the interesting thing about that is that if you become, quote unquote, anti-bigot, you sort of become the definition of the word yourself, because you lose the ability to tolerate anything that doesn't align with your views.
Not stare too long into the abyss, for the abyss stares back into you.
Yes, exactly that. Let's see. This is almost over. So it just says, since then, Chick-fil-A has worked to shed its controversial image, and over time, protests against the chain have largely dissipated because people forget about these things. As much as they want to say they truly care, they just put on a display for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, and it's over, and they move on to the next issue. The company still went on. They're probably still making a ridiculous amount of money because so many people love fast food. And, you know, it blows over. So I feel like a lot of these things are just kind of the outrage of the week flavor of stuff. And just as given the backlash against Dorsey's Chick-fil-A meal, however, it seems the fast food chain still has some work to do to move past Kathy's comments. Again, you know, I don't see what work they have to do. They're just serving chicken. As long as they provide that service, they're doing their jobs. They don't really need to go above and beyond that. You give them your money, they slap a sandwich into a bag, and you head off to, you know, lunch, or you sit down at a table and eat, whatever.
It should just be that simple. I mean, there's no reason to make a big hassle out of every little thing you don't agree with.
Right. So I'm just looking back on the chat here real quick. I think I'm probably missed quite a bit of stuff. Best segue. Yeah, that was all too fitting. The jokes are just right there in front of your face. Okay, Pride Month is important for future reference on who to gas. Oh.
Wait, what was that? I didn't hear that.
It says Pride Month is important for future reference on who to gas. Oh boy. That's when the disavow. That's when people will be shouting that from the rooftops. Because Christian equals anti-gay for some reason. Anti-LGBT probably means believing in traditional definition. Yeah, probably, because a lot of the activist groups will kind of muddy the waters of what constitutes anti. It sort of goes against, you know, it's sort of anything that goes against their very strict narrative. Let's see. Still going. I gotta catch up. We are witnessing a normie enlightenment. Depends on how you're using the term anti-gay, really. It forbids practitioners to have homosexual relationships and such, but a lot of them really don't care. Yeah, I think most people just want to kind of live their own life. I mean, it's funny how people wanted freedom, and this is sort of gonna go into the next little topic before I end, and it's not really a long topic. It's just something that I kind of wanted to point out. So it was just a it's kind of just a headline, but I wanted to just touch upon it very quick before we wrap up the show. And it says, enforced monogamy men's rights activist Jordan Peterson to speak in Indianapolis. Now, Jordan Peterson is not a men's rights activist, and the enforced monogamy quote, I'm going to guess here that, I don't know, it's probably missing a larger context knowing Peterson. So what I was getting at was this whole the freedom thing, where, you know, people want the freedom to live their lifestyle and associate with those who are like-minded and whatnot, and just kind of operate in the world in their own way that makes them feel comfortable and happy, whatever that means anymore. But the thing is a lot of those lifestyles were considered the outlier, not necessarily normal, and there's sort of a connotation that is applied to anything that deviates from the norm, where it's automatically considered inherently bad, at least in their minds. I don't think that just because you aren't considered what is the quote-unquote normal, that it's inherently bad. But it's not inherently good either. So every time they kind of apply these labels, and so monogamy was the norm, I guess you could say, for a while, right? So now we're getting into this where they're kind of trying to deconstruct the family unit. Monogamy is not good anymore. It's problematic for whatever reason they want to say. I'm not even sure. I can't keep up. But my point is that you don't have to destroy what is considered the norm in order for you to live your life the way that you want to. There's room for both of these things to exist. And the interesting thing is, I think society is sort of at odds with itself. They want to repair all these problems, but they're going about it by deconstructing everything that gave people a solid foundation. The family unit is very important. You know, it frames the way you grow up. It frames the way you learn everything. If you don't have a solid family, or if you have an abusive family, that can lead to so many problems in life. And they're trying to argue, they're trying to make society better, but really what they're doing is ruining it by ruining things that have worked for thousands of years for people. And it's not good just because it's old. That's not the argument. You know, the length of time something has been around doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing, but there is obviously something that resonates with people that creates the civilized society that we've come to live in. And now it's just kind of like we're dialing back on it, all for the arbitrary levels of comfort for people that are not the majority, even though they still have the freedom to live their life as they wish. But that's not enough. And I think that's where we're going a little bit too far. You don't have to destroy what's considered normal in order to make room for yourself. And I think a lot of it goes into those people just can't handle the idea that they're not considered normal. And when I say that, I don't mean it as a term to denigrate. I just simply mean outlier. All right, I'm checking chat here. I believe... Oh, okay. I had the stream paused, so I thought I lost you for a minute.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I was here. I I was listening to what you had to say, and thinking if I had any points to add. And honestly, I'm in agreement. I mean, I have nothing really to add.
Peterson explained the enforced monogamy as basically culture will discourage you from sleeping around in a show which Vernaculus attended and did a video on. Yeah, maybe if you have, I don't know if you have the link to that show or something. I'd probably like to listen to that just to see what he has to say in full context. Is it productive to force those who are gay who wouldn't have heterosex on their own anyways to try to fix themselves? No, that's not necessarily what I'm saying at all. I don't know if you're just asking somebody else or if you got that. Okay, it seems you were adding somebody else, but yeah, I just don't think that it has to be encouraged. They have the freedom, they have their rights, they are able to have relationships just like any other person. That's all you need. If you have the same fundamental rights, you kind of have to stop fighting for rights. At that point, you're just asking for special privileges. You don't need to subvert the foundation of society every time you want something.
Well, I want to go back. I did have something to add after all, now that I think about it.
Sure.
You mentioned how we shouldn't destroy norms to make other people comfortable with themselves, correct?
Well, not necessarily. It depends what it is. I mean,
yeah.
I'll wait to I'll reserve my reply, till you have a particular.
Oh, I'm not debating with you at all.
I don't mind. I'm just curious if you did have something that you could maybe point to be like, okay, maybe this is something where it kind of falls in. Because I don't by any means. I should clarify. I've felt like the outlier all my life. I've felt like the outsider in society. I don't fit in. I don't like to do the things that are socially acceptable, that are considered fun. It's not me. It's not my character. But do I expect the rest of the world to change? No, because it's unreasonable. Not because maybe deep down in my heart I wouldn't be feel a little bit better about society itself if it did some things better. No, of course not. But you can only do so much, and you have to be. I feel like the people that want to just completely wreck everything, the foundations, are very insecure with themselves, that they have to see themselves presented as the norm. And what I'm saying is you kind of have to develop yourself as an individual person so you don't necessarily need that validation to exist the way you are.
Well, it goes back to the whole tolerance does not mean acceptance.
Right. And I don't think that, I don't think that everything that is considered a normal is inherently good. But when it comes to things like family, the family unit, to be more specific, I don't think that's something you need to destroy to have other types of relationships exist.
100% agree. You don't need to destroy something just because you think that your path is better.
And
I mean, you shouldn't rain on other people's stuff just because you think you're special, you're different, you need to make them like you.
And equal rights don't necessarily... Equal rights seem to have kind of been warped to mean glorification and celebration. I'm not saying that you can't be happy with yourself, but to kind of... I mean, look at what month we're in. We're in June. It's so-called Pride Month. I just, as with all celebratory months based on identity, I don't necessarily believe in them. I don't think that just because I was born a certain way, that I'm going to celebrate it, because it doesn't necessarily make me an inherently good person. That is necessarily worthy of celebration. Everybody wants to feel good about themselves, but you kind of have to do something to deserve that. Common decency is a thing. Sure, we should try to treat people the way that we want to be treated. But I think what I'm talking about are the more radical people that they want to be treated with respect, but they don't want to respect others. So that's what I'm sort of getting at when we have all these headlines that are kind of discouraging people from having children or discouraging the monogamy. It makes no sense to do that, because you still have the free will to choose the type of relationship you want, regardless of what you see on TV or anywhere else.
Well, I mean, like you said, there are a lot of times when I don't feel like I'm the most comfortable in the world. But do I go out of my way to ruin other people's good times because of that? Like, throughout high school, if I was to apply this logic of, you know, I need to destroy everything normal for me to feel comfortable, I would have to have, well, actually, I'm kind of scared to say what I would have had to have done in some of these radical mindsets. It's actually very scary how slippery some of these slopes can get.
Yeah, and you know, that could be one of the causes that nobody really wants to address when it comes to these situations of shootings and stuff. You know, it's obviously kids that aren't able to cope with rejection. Some of it is the bullying aspect, but even that was something that, you know, I was just taught: defend yourself, stand up for yourself, say, you know, enough is enough. If you show that you're not intimidated, it goes away. Obviously, that's not always an option for everyone, but it does seem that, and I know this is the media doing it as well, kind of blowing it up, but it does seem that people are more likely to jump to extreme measures because they feel like they're not getting what they deserve. And I think a lot of that is sort of coming from this whole everybody gets a participation trophy mindset. It's okay to lose. It's okay to not feel like you are the in crowd. And rather than teaching, you know, you have to tear everything down until you're considered, you know, the best, the top, that's not necessarily a good idea. Sorry, I saw something in the chat here. Are you against using statistical data as the basis upon which to create law? Well, I have I kind of have my, I know many people will disagree with this, but I have my issues with statistics and the way that they are manipulated, the way that they are collected. It's difficult. I will have to, you know, try to formulate my thoughts on it a little bit more, but I see a lot of this used for things that I don't think you should automatically agree just because somebody says they have a certain set of stats, or even if the statistic is true, the root cause for it should be what you're addressing, rather than trying to create law based on something that you may not understand what exactly is the issue there. I understand that may
it's
not...
like having a manager tell you, yeah, we need this new piece of technology right away, and they have no clue what the frick they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that may not be a satisfactory answer, but that's kind of where I'm at right now, because I've seen the whole the study wars, as I like to call it. Actually, I just pulled that out of my ass, where people will come along and say, look, I have this study that supports my my narrative. I see that a lot. And then you'll have somebody that comes up with a counter study that goes against what the other person was saying. And so it gets into this muddy water of, okay, who do we trust? What do we do? So yeah, you know, you have to kind of you have to dig deeper. You can't just say, here's study, supports what I say, therefore true, now we need to go to the law, because you'll almost always be able to find something that counters that. You know, you have to go into the sample sizes, the methodology behind it, the method of control. It's a little bit more complicated than people give credit for. They kind of just do this surface level thing of, I have study, it's been proven, therefore I am correct. And that's what I don't like about it.
They're kind of like how they were saying for years, butter will kill you, eat margarine, and then all of a sudden one day they switched back to butter being the better option.
and that's kind of something that I... So you're trying to say you don't want a white ethno state. I personally don't. I know some people do. That's I don't know if... I don't think they're gonna get it, but you know, it's one of many various opinions out there. I kind of got thrown off with that one. I thought I should answer it though, just because it popped up. What was I saying?
We were talking a little bit about
the studies and
the studies, and and how you can't just go off of somebody's study and say, oh, that sounds legit, without having all the data, like now data points and all that.
Now I remember. Thank you. So it's kind of like when people say, I believe in science. Oh, I think something popped up here. I think I got a follow on... I think that was for Twitch. But because follows are Twitch, so they're not going to be able to get my thanks. It's a little bit random. Interesting. So when somebody says like, oh, I believe in science, or science says, therefore it is, they seem to forget that science, not only is it not a belief system, but it's not this infallible thing. Science is a method, a tool, which we use to observe and explain the world around us. Things change as you discover new things.
It's a darn good tool, but it's not, like you said, infallible.
Right. So
I could use a scientific method right now to prove that you or anyone else that's not me actually has no brain. This is actually something I can do, because the scientific method says if you cannot touch it, taste it, see it, smell it, or hear it, it cannot be proven. So I cannot prove that you have a brain. Sorry, Scratch Point.
That's all right. I've had many people accuse me of that, so... Okay,
well, I know you have a brain.
Well, studies often are very careful about not giving an interpretation, and if they do, it's with paragraphs of disclaimers. It's our journalists who decide to interpret it. Yeah, and with the state of modern journalism, I am far less likely to trust what they have to say, because it's more opinion.
Their own spin and theory.
Yeah, journalism seems more opinion based than just like, okay, here's a story, here's what happened. No, they kind of have to play activist, or they seem to believe that they have this not a moral responsibility to present the facts as they are, but a moral responsibility to present their narrative as they see it. And that's the mistake that I think a lot of them are making. That's a very general statement. There are people out there that are trying to be good journalists. It just seems like it's a little bit few and far between, because the news has sort of become very clickbaity. Like a quiet day, they'll come up with the most insane stuff. I saw...
You mean like some joker eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich? That sort of news?
That's one. The other one was, look, there's a lot of things that you can criticize the president on, and we don't need to get into all that. But I will say, criticizing him about asking or presenting it as though it's news when he asked a Marine to move out of the way because he was kind of in the way of the photo op, that's not something you need to really present as news. That's a little 5-second thing that just kind of happened. There's nothing newsworthy about that. I mean, you couldn't even
give that 5 seconds.
You couldn't even hear what was being said. He probably just said, "Excuse me, can you go over here?" It's not a big deal, guys. Just it's time to stop. I know you hate him, but you gotta find something a little bit better, or people aren't gonna take the genuine criticism seriously. All right. There's a correlation between educational attainment and irreligion/atheism becomes atheists are smarter than religious people because of it. Yeah, which is, you know that that's historically ridiculous, given the fact that, more people were, I guess I would say more people were religious back in the old days when discoveries were being made. OMG, Trump hates Marines. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to finish off, and I think we did a good job of going into it. That's kind of hilarious that we kind of went on to like a 30-minute discussion just based off of this headline. But
sorry about that.
It was
I
good.
get distracted easily.
No, I appreciate that we were able to turn it into some content and a productive talk. All right, so thank you everybody for watching and tuning in and taking part in chat and all of that. And we will see you next stream.
Have a good one, everybody.